Welcome, family. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's 8 o'clock. Y'all know what that means. It's time to talk. Boy, oh boy, do I have a show for y'all today. But first, let me start by thanking uh, Incision. Again, I know you've seen it. Incision.care. Please go sign up, log on, let them know that you came from Time to Talk. Just let them know that you saw and you wanted to know more. Request that demo from them today. Also, RST Automation, same thing. Let them know that we sent you. Request that demo today. Get that innovation for your departments and just see where it could take your departments. And speaking of innovation, that's what we're talking about today, right? SPDs are changing. Sterile process as a whole is changing. From what you see as your normal everyday, uh, what we used to do is evolving, and things are becoming more and more technologically advanced. And are we prepared for that? Are we ready to go into that next uh, realm of what is sterile processing? This is where we're going to talk about some of those technologies and what they can do for departments. We started way back. You remember, if you remember, or had the the chance to remember, when we were doing everything by paper. We were writing everything down and keeping track of all your sterilization records and writing down everything that went in a load. Then slowly tracking systems came out where you didn't have to do that anymore. Innovation, right? BIs got smarter. We were having to wait 3 hours at one time. Now we're waiting 20 minutes. So things are changing slowly in your departments, even to, just how we're capturing information. What's next? Are you ready for what's next? Well, today we're going to discuss where we were, where we're at, and what potentially could possibly be the next wave of technological advances. Um, if you saw one of the sponsors, as I said, like RST Automation, they have programs and machines that makes your job more efficient by using AI technology. Incision care, they're changing the way that we look at education. They're changing the way that education is presented. There are other companies on the verge of these great things that are going to be coming out for the SPD industry that takes AI to a different level. Are you prepared for that? Some of us say no, right? We've had conversations on here where we know that people are against some things AI because they think that they're going to take their jobs. You think that it's going to, shorten the span of humans in the physical form inside of sterile processing. We're going to debunk some of that today because with anything, like we've said, with all AI or most AI, it still has a human element, right? And then even for those that don't have the human physical persona, what are you doing to be prepared to be the one taking care of that AI? Jobs will transform roles into different roles and things like that. So there will be a human aspect to most things that get implemented AI wise. Are you prepared for that? That's where we're at with this today. So I went out and found, I've had the pleasure to work with this gentleman on some projects, and technologically his mind and how it works and the things that he's been able to do and see, I think was the perfect platform to bring him to talk about this particular subject because, working with AI, developing AI, been involved in different aspects of the new wave of what's coming. What better way to explain it to you than to have somebody who's actually actively in the field doing something like that? So I reached out to, not only a colleague, but a good friend, and Jake McHugh, to come up here and let him tell you what he's seen, what he thinks, what the possibilities for the future are. So, we're going to go right to this commercial where you get to see a little bit more about RST and see that what it does. And then when I come back, I'm going to be joined by Jake, and we're going to jump right into this discussion about where these emerging technologies are going to take us in sterile processing. Family, are you ready? I hope you are, because this is going to be good. So right after this commercial, me and Jake, we jump right into it right after this. Welcome back, Jake. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, sir. And how are you?
I'm good. As I was watching that, and before we get into the talk, as I was watching that, and I say sterile processing, but did you see that they are covering all the bases there? They have the AIM assembly, they have the AIM peel pack, they have the storage.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is it just the initial sterile processing, we're reaching out into the storage systems, and everything is getting smarter. So, AI is being incorporated into everything. What do you think about that?
AI. So, that is a very interesting aspect that's coming out. I see a lot of potential. I also see a little bit of risk because whoever controls the data can change the data. And we need to be careful on our end that we're not putting things into these algorithms that might be a HIPAA violation.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
first thing that I always want to worry about is, with new tools, what's this going to get me in trouble with? So making sure you're safe and not putting anything out there. But
Okay.
then really trying to get in, how can we utilize this in our departments and trying to build better processes?
Okay. Family, y'all know me. I done put the cart before the horse. My fault. I apologize. Jake, for the people who don't know who you are, can you introduce yourself to the family, sir?
Oh my goodness. So my name's Jake McHugh. I am a clinical education specialist with agility. And I go to hospitals helping people build better processes, doing education, in services, audits, making recommendations on how they can better provide cleaner tools for the patient, first
Okay.
and foremost, and also protecting themselves in the department. Occasionally, you see somebody not doing the right thing, and they need to do it in a better fashion so they don't hurt themselves.
Okay. Okay. So you're like the big brother of the department. You're watching. You're watching. Okay. I got it. I picked up on that. I got it.
Oh, no,
So
no.
with this, with you helping people and you seeing different things and traveling to different hospitals, you of course get to, as you say, you get to help them with processes. Now, as they bringing in this new technology, are you the one that helps them develop the process for how this is incorporated, or normally they already have it and you're trying to help them get better with using it?
And it could be both of those.
Okay.
So occasionally they don't have devices on hand that they really should. And I will make suggestions on that, whether it's an official report or just in passing, talking to managers, supervisors, or technicians. Um, but if they have a tool, but they're not just fully utilizing it, I try and pull them as many resources as I can. And I might even have a few tool tips that I can share with them to show how that can be better rolled out and used on a regular basis.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. When
Mhm.
we speak of efficiency, when we talk about quality and we talk about innovation, and then you think about sterile processing, what do those three terms mean to you in terms of where we are as an industry right now?
Right now, as an industry, I think we are leaning over on the edge of a big chain that's going to be coming up.
Okay.
Like you had mentioned, we have AI out in the industry, but it's not fully being utilized in all aspects. Whether that's just because companies haven't rolled it out, or even those companies that have rolled it out, hospitals haven't picked it up yet. But
Okay.
these tools are only going to get more advanced and more complex as we start to learn how to use them. They get bigger, better, um, using the data that they've collected, um, along with whether that's instrument companies, hospitals, equipment manufacturers, learning from that information. And there are a couple of examples that I'm sure I'll give out later in this chat with us, but I don't want to spill all the beans just yet.
Okay. So in saying that, from where we were, how has technology traditionally played a role in sterile processing, and how is that evolving? To your point, how has technology normally been used to where it's evolving to now?
So right now, what we've normally seen are small steps. So devices coming out like borescopes,
Uh huh.
um, devices coming out like the RST automation stuff. And there's a few other ones. They're out there. They've been in the field for some time. A lot of the challenges, though, are hospitals not picking them up. They're seeing these tools, or they may not even be aware that some of these tools are out there, and trying to get them to hear about them, see what works best for them is probably one of the bigger things that's trying to get over this hump.
So, I, let's take the borescope for example. I
Hmm.
know I've been to facilities and people have them, but it's a struggle to get people
Yes.
to use it because they say it slows them down. So, how can how do you explain technology that's supposed to make us more efficient slowing us down? Like
Well,
so,
anything that you introduce into a field at the first moment is going to kind of slow you down as people learn how to use it. But
okay,
once it becomes part of the process and people get better at it, it will become a little bit quicker every time you use it. You start to learn what you're looking for.
okay,
Um, and in fact, using the borescope as an example, that was something, a few years ago, it was just a visual device.
right.
And now we have companies that are coming out where there's actually a program in the background that's helping technicians identify problems, helping them see a lot clearer what's going on inside those devices.
I was actually going to bring that up to you that I know that even the borescope, and we talk about technology, how technology is evolving. The borescope itself, as you said, it was once just visualization. Now, with the program, you can identify what the bioburden is. You can do all of these other things. So even the technology itself is evolving, and that still scares people as well.
It
So where you
does.
didn't want to use it the first time, now you really don't want to use it.
Well, I see a lot of hospitals that are afraid that, well, if we start looking down these channels, we're going to start seeing things. But the matter of fact is that whether you look down those channels or not, that stuff is down there anyway. It's still there. And unless we go looking for it, we're not going to find it.
But then that
Um,
becomes a challenge too, right? Because if I don't look, or the more I look, the more I find, but then I don't have the budget to replace all these instruments, or do I go disposable? So these other questions come about because of the technology.
yep. Different things are happening with these technologies that, you know, it's easy to say, oh, look, a new tool, we'll put it in there, we'll see how it works. Well, now it's starting to turn things upside down in our departments, but we are learning that maybe our quick and easy brushing process in decontam isn't hitting all the right numbers. Or maybe we're finding out that we're not using the right size brushes to really get all the channels clean appropriately.
So
But
with saying that, if I'll just say if staff, because they don't use it and they're still doing the same things, with them using it, it identifies other issues. Like you just said, if I use this and I see all of this residual that was still in there, I can literally say, well, you didn't clean this appropriately. So then that starts another conversation. So how do you?
But I don't want to start using technology as a finger pointing system.
Okay.
In our departments, we have to work as a team. And occasionally, with these tools, people do miss stuff. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe they didn't have the right size brush. Maybe they should have a borescope in decontam so they can check these cannulas before it gets on the prep and pack side. Maybe it didn't get pre-treated the way it should have before it came down. And now that bio burden has hardened up, and even though they brushed it appropriately, it adhered to the side and was not going to come out with just that regular brushing process.
Okay.
So there can be some, helpful tools and thought processes that really need to get us where we are. But as we're finding these things, collecting that data, whether that's in a program or even, just an Excel spreadsheet, to start looking at where are these gaps repeating? Is it a specific device? Is it a specific tray? Maybe it is a person. But trying to find out where it is and the trends is the next part of that data system.
So, family, as you saw, he said that the technology itself can actually help you identify where there are gaps that can be identified and, brought to management's attention. It's not just, like I said, he's not trying to use it as a finger pointing, but to say we don't have such and such, or we need to improve on this part. So again, that's where the technology is helping us by showing us different things that we can be doing in our departments. I like that a lot. Jake, I got to go to commercial, but I'm going to ask you a question so you can think about it real quick before we come back.
Okay.
Just identified part of it, but what are some of the most significant? No. I'll save that one because that's a good one. What are the biggest challenges in sterile processing that these technologies aim to solve? So we talk about efficiency, we talk about all that, we talk about quality, but what are some of the bigger challenges that some of our technology is trying to solve? And we're gonna answer that when we come back, because that's a good one.
Okay. Incision.care. Again, if you haven't heard about them, haven't learned about them, please go to their website, incision.care, and look at it for today. You saw that it's 21 modules that cover 6 themes that helps us standardize the way education is being brought to our departments. Incision makes surgical skills available to everyone. They do this by creating onboarding programs needed to train surgical and SBD techs
or they can provide teams with the information they need in the moment via their custom built app, increasing their confidence, preparedness, and efficiency for OR and SPD staff. Incision is definitely one of those tools that's aiming to change the way we do something. Right before we went to break, I asked Jake, what are some of the challenges that technology is aiming to solve? When I say that, what I mean is everybody's creating something that they say is efficient. Somebody's creating something they say that helps us control quality. What do you see as our challenge, our biggest challenges in the sterile processing? And is there really technology that can fix that?
There's, with all the technology that's being developed or even already out, there are a couple of things that they are trying to tackle, whether in one aspect or multiple. The first one we kind of already talked about with the borescopes is seeing the unseeable.
Okay.
So visually bringing that, those hidden nooks and crannies to the surface.
That's a big one. So yeah.
Another one is I see a lot of different learning and education options that technology is bringing out to the forefront. One other big one is data organization and transparency. So tracking systems that are really diving deep into their, system reports. And previously, with a lot of the tracking systems out there, whatever report you built and kind of had that data, you would still have to take it, put it into an Excel document, and kind of like see what you could get from this information. But I see a lot more systems coming out where they're doing that for you. So now you don't have to know how to manipulate the data to see what's there. It's being brought right to the forefront. And that's probably one of the biggest things that we can use first.
So we're talking visibility of the issues, like looking into cannulas and identifying cracks, and so we've seen stuff that's addressing that. The data points that you're saying from tracking system standpoint is trying to eliminate me taking data from one spot, putting it in another spot to create a document that I got to send to another spot. so trying to get smarter with how we're collecting the data and where we're using it at. Okay.
And then I would even say that there's another one. It's not out as much as I would love to see it, but it is slowly climbing through, and that is, robotics to help technicians get through their workflow. Where I think really one of the most crucial aspects of this is trying to keep the technicians focused on the work they're doing. And the robots are able to start moving trays back and forth. Whether if you've seen it already, there's the little robot that just brings like washer carts in and out of washers.
Yes.
There are robots that are now picking cases, putting them on a case cart, and now the case cart's a robot itself traveling to wherever it needs to go.
So my question, just on that point right there, is that feeding the narrative where people think that, we're going to become obsolete in the department? Because like you said, if they're already picking cases, you don't need to take the case cart anywhere. It goes where it needs to go, because of whatever program or whatever the case may be. Is that why we see that so many people are hesitant to even accept this AI technology, because they think that that's where the jobs are headed?
I definitely do, and do see and understand the nervousness that everybody is, maybe going through. But I also see a lot of potential where, as these tools, these robots are being developed, that can alleviate us from needing to do a lot of the physical jobs that can end up hurting us from time to time, lifting these trays over and over again. But being able to stay in one place so we can focus on the instruments that we're working on, whether that's in decontam or assembly. So we're making sure that they're clean and functional for the patients instead of possibly getting interrupted every time that washer or sterilizer alarms. Now we get a break from what we're doing, walk over there, take it, come back, and remember what part of the process we were looking at.
So in saying that, and I know people are going to say this,
Mm-hmm.
if you incorporate robots into the normal workflow and people don't have to leave their stations as much, doesn't that increase the productivity of somebody because they can do more because they can
Mm-hmm.
do less at the same time? Like if the robots take part of the position and they're doing that part and I'm just focusing on this, are you going to require me to do more?
It's a potentiality. I mean, you would be able to do more. You would be able to go through more instruments with a finer tooth comb.
And I think
And
that comment there said it best. Robots can't do our jobs. They can assist. Like you said,
Mhm.
if the robot's pulling the washer rack out, then I'm not gonna say it's gonna unload the washer rack, but if it's pulling the washer rack out, that's another step that I don't have to do. If they're pulling cases, then yes, I can stay here and focus on the tray itself and the instruments inside of the tray. But it's always going to come to that point that people are going to, rebel to the point of you're going to ask me to do more trays because I don't have to do this other part. Is
Mhm.
that going to cause me to be burnt out now because you're asking more of me?
I don't think that that would be a problem
Okay.
because as more technology gets invested and we're saying that we're going to be able to do more, I have a feeling that hospitals will probably increase cases, which will need more technicians to do more of those efficiency of checking the instruments. There is a limited amount of work that a single person can do in a day.
Right.
And
Right.
we're just going to be shifting that from inspecting all these instruments and moving trays and doing sterilizer loads into hopefully we can start inspecting and checking these instruments for safety.
So just redirecting the work to put more focus on the actual quality of the instruments themselves versus I won't say little small tasks. Every task in SPD is important, but I'm not rushing to empty the cart washer every time we have a robot to do that, or I'm not
Mhm.
rushing over there for that alarm because we got something to check that. So it's redirecting where we're focusing and using the tools as an assist. You're assisting me, not taking over my job.
Yes.
I think that's the hardest thing for people to actually kind of get in their head is that you want us to coexist with the robot. It's
Mhm.
not here to take over. You're telling me it's not taking over, but I've seen how these movies play out. So that's where people heads go immediately when you say this.
But I would also be interested to know, and of course, it hasn't been developed yet, when robots are introduced more and more into these sterile processings, there may be new tasks or different tasks that staff have to be calibration tests on some of these robots.
Not right,
Um,
right, right.
or we have to, take account for however many are up and running. Are any of them non-functioning? And we got to, put in another call to facilities to say, hey, robot, number 5 is no longer functioning. The case cart robot's running into the wall. Um, so there will be new tasks and there will be new aspects of the job that come behind from this.
I think that so I know that when they went to the World Health Organization a year ago or so, videos came out. They had the robots that were wrapping trays and doing all this stuff. So immediately people, like, is that a meaningless task that, hey, I'll get the tray ready, the robot can wrap it? That still takes, some of my job away. But
Mhm.
again, that is incorporating the robots into our normal everyday function. When you see it doing the things that normally you would say they can't do, now you see them wrapping trays. what's to say that they can't put a tray together?
That's true. And there are some companies that are trying to build that, doing instrument identification. A lot of these technologies, at least right now, are moving a little slow. Robots at this point that I've seen can't put out enough trays to take over for one technician.
Right.
But who knows what's to say to come in the future? But again, with a lot of these different technologies coming out, I got a feeling you're going to see different roles as well, new job roles coming out to fulfill what we are no longer doing.
And like with RST, and I'm gonna use them because they are a sponsor,
Mhm.
with their AIM assembly station. Yes, it does assemble the tray for you, but it can't do that without the human element. So you still have
Mhm.
to inspect the instruments and then put it on the conveyor belt. Yes, it has the AI identification to make sure that what's there is on your count sheet, but you see that they work together. Like you
They
have to do
do.
your inspection and then place it on the belt for the machine to do its job. So it's
Mhm.
not a whole takeover. It is an efficiency tool, it's a training tool, but you still see the human part of it. Even with their pill pack station, same thing. You have to inspect, you have to put it down, it identifies, and then it gives you the next steps in the chain. So it's not a
Yep.
takeover.
Exactly. And even with that automation tool that they have, some of the devices it rolls in, it'll say, "Oh, this is a curette. Can you please double check what size it is?" And it'll roll it back out. You go, "Okay, this is a 000 curette." Then you click it on the screen and go through the rest of the tray.
So yeah,
Um,
so it still incorporates using the human element, and I think that's the piece that people miss is that even though we say it's AI, it still
mhm.
needs your input. So that's where that piece comes in at. So,
Yep.
and I guess that was one of my next questions is like, what are some of the barriers that we're gonna face, or you see people facing when they're trying to adapt this technology? And I know a lot of it hinges on people acceptance. That's one of the big ones. I have to want to use the technology, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the number one that everybody first thinks of is, well, my hospital's never going to pay for this, because there is a big cost in some of these new devices. The second part of this, what I see occasionally at some of the places I visit, is that hospitals or departments may not be aware of the tools that are out there in the industry, or some of the things that the tools they already have can do. Um, I can't tell you how many times somebody has a borescope in their department, but it's sitting underneath the shelf still in the box.
Seen
Um,
that. I've seen that. So if what I know that's a big barrier. If you don't know, you don't know. But how do we fix that part? I mean, what can we as an industry do? Because I know we have conferences. I know we have all these things where these things are introduced. But if
mhm.
a person is not open minded to say it can help, would that be the biggest barrier? Is not even giving the people information?
True. Um, for those that are just, you're talking about anybody who sees the technology and just doesn't want to take it on.
Right. Like so, like you said, the borescopes are there. They're still in the box because nobody wants to go down that road.
Oh
Or
yeah.
you don't have a borescope because you don't know, you said how people don't know certain things exist. I know it's kind of impossible to say you don't know about a borescope, but there may be some people that haven't heard of it.
Yep. And eventually it just becomes two ways, either still trying to get the information out, and the more these devices are adopted and the more we talk about them, whether it's through news articles, podcasts, or other aspects, that information does get spread. And I think at a certain point, there may be standards that change later on down the road and say, hey, you have to have this device as a process tool to do the best job you can. Now,
Let's
I
say
know that's probably
IE
going to it's
IE
going to take.
ST91, right? ST91 put a borescope in the literature.
It did. It didn't say that you have to have one, but it's the first start of saying, hey, if you've never heard about this tool, it does exist.
So so one of the things that stuck out from what you said is that people are going to use budget and we can't afford to do ABC. But if they start putting it in the literature, what does that mean for facilities at that point? Because if they say must and should and those buzzwords that Amy likes to use, if they start putting that in the wording, doesn't that change the whole budget aspect? Because now it's something that you have to do.
And some facilities still struggle against that, is that, the SPD department knows we need this, whether it's a helpful tool or a standard that requires it. Then you have to get the budgetary approval for that from a higher power. And that takes some convincing occasionally.
But then does that not affect our quality? Or when it comes time for these inspections, i.e. JCO and the people, the powers that be,
Yep.
if you're not in compliance, doesn't that change the way you should think about it? If you're thinking, I don't have the money, but you rather fail the inspection because you didn't do something?
And that you kind of have to get very well versed in how to communicate your needs appropriately to your C-suite or whoever controls your budget. Collecting that evidence that says, hey, whether you've had problems and this tool could be a helpful device to solve those from happening, bringing the regulatory information, bringing the IFUs, information from these Joint Commission audits that says, hey, they're dinging people that don't have these. If we don't have them when they pass through our place, we may get in trouble as well.
Right.
And, collecting that and presenting it in a full and open manner to get the backing from whoever controls your budget.
Yeah, I think that's the important part, is like it has to be some open dialogue between you and the C-suite and all the powers in between. Because if you're doing something or not doing something because you feel like it's not a necessity at this moment, but the standard says otherwise, that is definitely conversations that need to be had, because that's where we're now jeopardizing patient safety. You're now putting us in a position where we don't have the tools needed to do what we have to do. And with that note, we're going to go to this commercial, and when we come back, we're going to just hit on a little bit more of those challenges of that having that difficult conversation with the C-suite or even in the departments themselves. So right after this commercial, me and Jake will be right back.
SPD, unfortunately, is often a very underappreciated and underrepresented part of the perioperative team.
So what we understood is that not only is it super important for the sterile processing technician to understand what's happening in the OR and how what they do impacts patient safety, but also that the perioperative team understand what is happening in the sterile processing department.
If you've lived in either one of those places, you know how it feels when something goes wrong. The relationship between the OR and the SPD can sometimes be really difficult. With this program, we want to help build a bridge between the two departments. We're all working together towards the same goal of surgical patient safety, and we're so much stronger when we work together.
Incision.care, again, one of the main focuses of that was the patient safety, right? But at the bigger picture was, how do we work together to ensure patient safety? Again, Incision.care, request your demo today. Tell them Time to Talk sent you. Jake, right before the break there, we were talking about just having those conversations and trying to get the C-suite on board. And that led me to this just question about when we're talking about convincing, or we're talking about trying to get, people on board. How do sterile processing departments justify the need for the technological advancements? How, I know you talk about data, you talk about these things, and what they're going to have in front of them is the people data. And now we're trying to get that into, hey, we can bring this machine in that can triple and double this. A lot of times people don't see how that correlates. What can sterile processing departments do?
Well, first and foremost, working with the vendor, they should have some tools that help kind of share what productivity or benefits these new devices can bring to your department. They are usually very well versed in communicating to the C-suite aspects. So utilizing them, of course, if you want to buy their technology, they should be wanting to help you as much as they can. But you also have to collect that data on your department side that will kind of hopefully set you up for a win in getting that in.
So the main part of that, I just wanted you to touch on it, and you said it exactly. Work with your vendors, because again, anything that they're trying to bring in, there has been data studies that say, for every 20 trays you do, the machine can do this, or there's studies out that show where the efficiency is. So make sure you're working with your vendors and getting that information. If you know your department needs something, your vendor partner is going to be the one to help you get that information you need for the C-suite. Educational programs, Jake. When it comes to that, I know this is one of yours, that educational aspect of getting people trained to where they need to be for this type of thing. What can departments do on that aspect of putting something in place?
So a lot of that, with that one, getting a educational program part of your department is identifying where your gaps are. Why would you need this, and how could it help? So if you have a lot new staff that are coming in, hopefully you have at least one educator or trainer that can take care of some of these. But if you have enough new staff coming in, that might be too much for one person to handle. So having some of these programs can really help get more than one person on board at once.
Okay. So back to the original, let's talk about it. Technology, AI, all of the above. Do you see us headed in a direction where every department will have something AI?
Yes. Whether it's a small aspect or a bigger aspect, I definitely think that it will be part of newer programs, systems, and devices coming through in the future. Definitely.
Does that change our mission overall? We talked about how it can assist us. We talked about, how it can take over certain aspects of the programming, as far as it can pick a case, it can do the case cards. We talk about it, like taking stuff out of the washer. It won't change our workflow, or does it?
Well, we did talk about workflow as an aspect of the technician being able to stand in one place and focus on, the inspection side and the assembly side. It may end up changing further down the road with whatever new implementations come out.
So from our normal, and that would take people getting used to stuff. If you have a workflow and you know what that workflow is, and you're comfortable, I don't like to say our older techs, but our seasoned veterans in the department, you know how that gets. If I've been doing it this way for the last 10, 15 years, and now you're telling me I don't have to leave my workstation, will that be an acceptance of the technology, or will it start leading toward a resentment of the technology because it's changing the way we operate?
And for that answer, I kind of want to bring two parts to an
Okay.
answer. One is it really can depend on how your department wants to roll out. With a big change like this, it's going to take some time. Nobody's going to just throw new devices and completely new processes into the mix, and everybody's going to be smooth and know what's going on. You may need to win over, or not necessarily win over, utilize the techs that already want to try it out. And as those techs are having their successes using the new technology, having some of those older techs or those that don't want to try the new stuff, having them see how it can help those first time joiners, and maybe you can win them over until the process has to change across the board.
Okay.
The other part of this is that it reminds me of a book that I had gotten my hands on to. It's called The Principles and Methods of Sterilization in Health Sciences. And it is a very old book. It came out way before CBSPD and HSPA, and it was made for physicians to talk about sterilization and cleaning. And there's actually a chapter in there listing out the pros and cons of having all of your instruments washed by hand or using an automated washer. And it's like, well, one costs more money. Well, one costs, more efficiency. One, you got to pay for it to be fixed occasionally. And the other one, what happens if they call out? So this kind of change in implementation with technology isn't new. It's been happening for, an extremely long time.
I think that's where I got the initial, like when we first came on, that initial statement was, if you're in this business long enough to know when you had to write down everything to now you having to scan, you know what I'm saying? So just seeing it evolve from, I remember having to write down everything on a sterilizer load. That is not fun.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, to go into now where you can just scan. So
Yep.
For people that have seen that kind of transition, this would be just another transition into something.
Exactly. It can be a different form of, efficiency, and it should make your job more easier. I was there too, where you were assembling one tray. You had, typed up count sheets that were printed out and put in a file folder. None of your
Right.
trays were labeled. So you take out the count sheet you thought the tray was. Halfway through assembling it, you realized this isn't a major plastics tray. It's a minor general tray. And some things just got mixed up in decontam. Well, now I got to go find the new count sheet. I got to pull it out. I got to start from scratch to do all my accounts. Getting a tracking system implemented in that kind of hospital, leaps and bounds over. No, you don't have anybody that has to now print out the count sheets at the end of the day.
Right.
You have pictures, you have names and reference numbers embedded into that system. It's going to make everybody's job a little bit quicker. You can put notes into your tracking system and pictures and videos.
Yeah, I think that's the aspect that people miss when it comes to the tracking systems of what it can do. If you're using yours even to the fullest of its capabilities and things like that, because of that efficiency part of that. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
So like I said, some of the stuff that we were saying, like BIs went from 3 hours down to 20 minutes. You could logging and scanning. Now I'm not writing everything down. So we've slowly seen a shift. And now it's like we're now slowly seeing another shift. And I think people just get on edge because, yes, this made us more efficient. Now you're talking about them doing some of the same jobs that we're doing. And that leads to this next point. Now, with what we've seen, and like I said, with them going over to the World Health Organization and seeing some of the stuff in other countries, some of this stuff is already being done. And again, we can say we're behind or we can say we're not there yet. But when people see the trends, they get nervous because there are departments that are all robots, if you want to call it that, all AI. And I think that's where they think we're headed, but I know that we're not. I don't think that we'll ever get there because I don't see a robot in decon. I just don't. That's just me. It's like I don't see a robot washing a tray. I just don't. It's just something about that changes my thought process.
I mean, we're just going to have to see what comes out. I know there are companies that are working on some things. Who knows? Maybe there's a technician who's washing everything in the sink by hand, but then they pass it off to the side and there's a robot, or we have conveyor belts already. It takes it into the ultrasonic, it rinses it off, and then it moves it over into the washer.
But you see, the key point there is still incorporated into our workflow. It's still us being involved. And I think, like I said, that's where I get the confidence to say that I don't think we'll ever go fully automated because we have to do some parts of it. Can you say a robot can inspect an instrument like you would? Will it look for those little impurities in a crack? Can it notice that the pitting? Can it notice, that speck of this or that? And I guess we can all say if a borescope can do it, why can't a robot do it? But this is a bigger scale of every instrument in the tray being checked.
Yep. So it's going to be definitely a process of seeing what's out there and what people come out with. And even with the borescopes today that are doing image recognition, it is more of a awareness flag than it is saying, 100%, hey, you have bioburden. There's a kink in this channel. It still takes that technician to validate what's really going on and, telling the device whether it's right or wrong. So yes, there will always be a human aspect as we, move forward. Somebody has to still double check their work.
Right. So with that being said, I know you're well traveled and you go to all these places. I know you're on a bunch of, other things outside of what you do for agility. Have you seen or heard of anything that's going to be like the next game changer?
There are a lot of devices out there that are either just starting to come out or that haven't been released yet that I've gotten, a little bit of a whisper in my ear that if they get out there could definitely change the system. I'm excited to see what is coming out in the next HSPA conference, who's going to, have a really different, unique tool. And some things that are planning to come out in another year or two.
Now, I did see something that I had to get your opinion on, and it's not, it's a changer, but and it's not even to evaluate them as a company. It's just this one item. I saw it from Zuno Medical. It was the robot tray, like the smart tray, that it actually turns green or red. It bioseals, and it's like a game that one changes everything. It's like, because I was like, cause me in my head, I'm like, they put electronics inside of steam. I don't even know how this works. But when you see it, it's one of those type. Like Turbot Surgical being able to officially put more trays in one thing. So all of these things that we're calling efficiency tools, incorporating them with AI, again, it changes the complexity of a department. If you had to say something to those seasoned vets with everything coming out, what advice would you give them as far as, adapting or, not, I don't want to do that, changing that mindset? What advice could you give that tech?
I would definitely say, keep your mind open, try it out. Anything that's coming through, especially if it is coming into your hospital, see how you can learn to work with it. Because chances are it's going to be helping you in some aspect. And yes, it might take some time to get used to, but the benefits can really be there. And if you absolutely don't want to do it, work with it and call out its problems. See where you can, point out the faults. Where are the missing gaps so that your department learns where it shouldn't necessarily lean 100% on it, or helping the company that's producing it build it to be better.
That's what I was about to ask you. Like that information, like bringing that to the forefront. Do companies really listen to those kind of comments and turn around and see where we can improve? And that is something that I spoke about at a previous HSPA conferences that I was on a stage with a manufacturer, and they say yes, we listen. Like if you say ABC, then we'll take it back and see where we can improve on those things. Companies have to be open to the idea that it's not perfect. Like people are going to find flaws.
And a lot of companies do listen. And I am also seeing some unique changes out in the industry that are happening that you wouldn't expect. We'll go back to borescopes. You have your yank hour suctions that, 10 years ago, those large kind of bulbous handles were completely hollow.
Right.
I was just at a facility not too long ago where they had a brand new one, and it actually disassembled. So the little tip came off. You could unscrew that, but the neck actually unscrewed from the handle. And what the biggest change was, when you look down the handle, there was a solid tube all the way through it. So the manufacturers of the instruments we're inspecting are realizing the gaps that they have. And now they're changing these devices to either come apart or not have these little ridges and pockets that bio can start to hide in. So
family, you see that, like, make sure that you are, like I said, if you do find something in your everyday, and you make sure you identify it, and make sure that we do get those to the manufacturer, to your rep, so that they can take it back and try to see if there's something that can be done. Perfect example, like he said, is the yank car. Everybody knows that was not the best design of anything at some point, and now based on what he's saying, is that now there's a newer design that actually assembles and breaks down so that you can get into those places that were hard to clean at one time, or even harder to inspect. So people do listen. So that's one of the things, like I said, make sure that your voice is heard. Make sure that you're saying what you're experiencing. That is the best part of what he just said, is that if you are facing difficulties in doing something, or there's something new that came in your department and you find some hiccups, make sure you bring that to the manufacturer's attention so that we can rectify what those challenges are for you. Because it doesn't do us any good if you bought it and then don't use it. Because that's how how people say it only takes, no matter how good something is, one bad review is going to spread way more than all the good reviews that's out there. So you want to make sure that you are listening to your customers. Make sure that you're giving us the information back to the manufacturer as well. Anything else for the people, Jake?
Just try and get yourself out there to learn the new technologies and devices that are coming out. Because yes, it's all can be a little scary, but some of these that you're already aware of, that if you are searching out there for what's coming and you see something that you're like, man, this would make my life so much easier, show it to your management, show it to your leadership. There's even changes in small technologies. There's a company out there making new style brushes with thumb rests, so we're not hurting ourselves when we're scrubbing those flat surfaces. Even small little technologies like that. We think of electronics and programming, but there's even innovations in plastic handles, taking apart different instruments that, now it's easier to clean, and we're not going to get that continuous bioburden all the time. So you got to put yourself out there and be open to kind of different things.
And please know that, yes, a lot of this innovation, a lot of these new things do come to HSPA the conference, but that's not the only place. You actually have to do some research. If you're looking for something, ask your reps, talk to, anybody that has information to try to get it so that you are kept informed of some of the things happening. We know that everybody doesn't go to the HSPA conference, but you have chapter meetings, you have, the reps that come in with different things. Get yourself informed so that you know as well what's out there, so that you won't be caught by surprise when some of this stuff gets brought into the facilities, because that happens too. Something to show up because a manager saw it or a director saw it somewhere, and then you're like, what is this? Right. So definitely keep yourself informed.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of magazines out there too that are advertising these different devices, new automated endoscope reprocessors, or different inspection devices, programs. It's really cool what's coming out. Different containers.
Yeah. And I've seen some of the newer brushes. I've seen some of the smart devices. And again, like it's not always the bigger companies that have them. Sometimes it's the smaller companies just getting a foothold on something. And I dare say I did see a BI the other day that had a readout of like 5 minutes or something, and I was like, what is happening?
Hey, I remember when it was 48 hours and you had to visually inspect it yourself to say whether it was positive or negative. I'm still waiting for the borescope that comes out with a VR headset, so you're literally inside the channel, looking around.
So that'll be the next thing. So yeah, we're waiting on that. So maybe this year at conference you'll see it. So therefore we won't even have to wait on it no more. Hey, family,
I only hope.
We've had a great time talking about the future of where sterile processing is headed, the AI, the innovation, and a lot of the good takeaways is, think about it from the standpoint of it being an assistant to your day. Think about it being an efficiency tool. Think about it as your coworker at the same point of it's pulling case cards and doing that kind of stuff. You have to, like I said, embrace what is going to be happening. It's not here to take your job. It's not here to take over. It's one of those things where we're going to have to see how we can coexist. And like Jake said, sometimes you have to learn how to fix the AI. So there's different aspects of where we're going to be going with it. So it's not here for you to take over. It's here to assist. Family, I appreciated you. I thank you. Jake, thank you for coming, sir. I appreciate you being here today. Very good conversation. Jake, how can people find you if they had follow-up questions?
The best way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn, so they can find me on there. And I am always open to listen to people's questions, walk through problems the best I can, or connect you with somebody who can if I cannot.
There you have it, family. I know y'all seen it going across the screen. Learn to listen so people are willing to talk. Coming very soon. You can go ahead and actually get your pre-order in. I'm going to be putting that link up so you can start pre-ordering that. Book is on the way. Jake, I appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Family, until next week, same time. It's been time to talk. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.